The original story I did was actually back in March of 2020 on this story of the boy that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. That is Letecia Stauch. And what happened to him is just incredibly sad. And I think behind his mother's incredible selfishness, what led to this, I have no pity for her at all. But before I get too much into being disparaging, because I don't want to shock anybody with my content, let me give you a disclaimer before we dive into this really, really huge update to the story. Sometimes it takes a while. So this is 3 years in the making. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. And I'm getting this story from WKRG.com, so thank you for the article. Pensacola, Florida. Again, this is going to be an update to this fool, this dummy that you guys see on my screen. That lady right there. That's Letecia Stauch. A nationally televised murder trial is underway in Colorado. The woman is accused of killing her stepson, not her biological son. Her stepson before putting his dead body in a suitcase. I want y'all to think about how heartless that is. That is to cause this baby boy's death. This boy didn't do nothing to deserve what he got. To cause his death, place his dead body in a suitcase, and guess what she did with it? She took his body like it was the suitcase, like it was filled with clothes that she didn't want, and threw it off of the side of a Pensacola bridge. That's what she did. Letecia Stauch was 11 years old, and he was reported missing from Colorado Springs, January 27th of 2020, roughly around when we did this story, by his stepmother, Letecia Stauch, or Stench, whatever you want to call her, 38 years old. Gannon's father, by the name of Albert, was a member of the National Guard, and he was on deployment at the time. So essentially, the mom became like a babysitter. Here's what I want you guys to remember, and I just use this as the cautionary tale. It doesn't mean that if you're dating someone or if you're married to someone that they're going to be violent towards your kid if they ever have to babysit them. I'm not saying that, but here's what I'm saying, and I've been saying this for a long time. You know how I always talk about hashtag mom's boyfriend and how these men don't share a DNA tie to these kids, and there's a good likelihood that they're probably going to abuse the children, especially if you leave them with unfettered access to these kids because they don't care about these kids, and these kids look like the person that made these kids that just got done sleeping with your mate. So you can understand how that might put a fire in someone's soul to not like the children that this woman produced outside of the person that they're in a relationship with. Hopefully you guys followed that. The same concept would apply when you marry into a relationship with someone who already has a kid, especially if that kid ends up living under that roof. It's no way for you to really know, and sometimes, man, you just gotta just really do your due diligence and just pray that you pick the right person. I just think that this woman developed a hate in her heart for whatever reason and caused the death of this boy. This boy didn't do a damn thing to this woman at all. The dad was on deployment. All she had to do was hold it down. That's it. Hold down the household like a wife is supposed to. His body wouldn't be found until nearly 2 months later in Florida. Gannon's body was found under a bridge near Pensacola. His body was wrapped in bedding and inside a suitcase. Gannon had been stabbed 18 times. But it gets worse because you guys know that's called a crime of passion. When you have that much rage in you, that you can stab a human being that many times, let alone 18 times. That's not an accident. That is intentional, and you meant for that person to die. That's why I believe that this should be an easy first-degree murder charge, life in prison, no possibility of parole. I don't know if they got the death penalty or not in Pensacola, Florida. Maybe we can get that. But not only that, shot in the jaw and had a skull fracture. Shot in the jaw. Y'all catch that? Law enforcement officers say that they believe that Letecia had killed Gannon in his bedroom while the two of them were at home alone on January the 27th. Investigators searched Gannon's bedroom, which is where they found blood splatter on the wall and blood stains on the mattress and carpet. Blood from Gannon was also found on the garage floor and the bumper of Letecia's car because she probably drug him out there. That is so sad to even think about. Photos of Gannon showed he was still alive that morning. In the photos, a Nintendo Switch gaming system was seen. Detectives say that gaming system had not been found to this day. Investigators were able to get surveillance video from neighbors which showed Letecia and a person who appeared to be Gannon leaving the home that morning. When the vehicle they were seen in returned, Letecia was the only person seen. She was convicted and sentenced to 2 life sentences. I don't even see what the point is of trying to make her serve that out. She's going to die in prison. Fine. But why waste taxpayer dollars? Like, I think people like that deserve the ultimate penalty on the law. If you was ever going to give somebody the death penalty, I think it should be like this, right? After Letecia's arrest for murder, she pled not guilty by reason of insanity. So she was looking for an excuse, and I'm glad they didn't give it to her. On April the 3rd, 12 jurors were seated with 6 alternatives. Opening statements began with the prosecution describing the murder. In the defense's opening statement, the attorney told the jurors she was legally insane when she killed Gannon. For reasons I've already stated, she did this on purpose. She knew what she was doing. She intended for this baby boy to die. Over the following days, multiple people testified for prosecution, including Gannon's father, Al, and the doctor that performed Gannon's autopsy. Al told the jurors that on January 26th, Letecia told him that a candle had accidentally spilled and there were bubbly spots on both sides of Gannon's arms. Letecia explained further that Gannon allegedly knocked over the candle, which started the fire. On January 27th, Letecia told Al that she didn't let Gannon go to school because he was having stomach issues. However, she said she let him go over a friend's house, all of which makes no sense. Letecia and Al were interviewed on January 28th, and afterward, Al went on a solo search for Gannon. It was at that time that Al discovered Letecia's car was not where she claimed it to be. He went back to the police department for a second interview, this time without his wife, without Letecia. Hotel documents show on February 4th, Letecia was in the Florida area. Gannon's body was found in that same area on March the 17th. In total, the trial for Stauch lasted 21 days, ending with the jury reaching a verdict on Monday, May the 8th. The jury deliberated a total of 8 hours before delivering a guilty verdict. After the announcement of the verdict, family members of Gannon asked that Letecia be given the maximum sentence. Al also asked the judge to strip Letecia of his last name. That's an extra level. He wanted her last name to be taken away from her. And that's just an extra level to show you how pissed off the dad was. To be honest, can you blame him? There was actually a petition that was put up where people put up one of those change.org petitions to try to encourage the law to be changed where or get it to where they made it to where she had to legally change her name. So I don't think they're going to be able to actually accomplish that, but I understand. I definitely get it. The judge sentenced Letecia to life in prison without the possibility of parole on 2 counts of first-degree murder. He also sentenced Letecia to 13 and a half years on the charges of tampering with evidence and tampering with a dead body. That is a sick, sick person. Let's go. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. And I do need to make a small correction. Thank y'all. I saw y'all post that in the chat. Law and Crime covered a lot of this, so thank you and shout out to lawandcrime.com. But she was in Colorado, but she took the body to Florida from what I understand. She drove his body to Florida from Colorado. Thank y'all for correcting me on that, because I think I said it incorrectly, but that's why we got the live chat. I'm thankful for that. So just to make that correction, here we go. Some of this I'm going to skip because it's a little bit long.
A parent's worst nightmare is getting a phone call letting them know that something has happened to their child. How much worse must that nightmare be when law enforcement asks not for a picture of your loved one, but rather DNA and dental records? I've also heard it said that one of the worst tragedies a parent can experience is to outlive a child. I have known people, both professionally and personally, who have gone through that. It never leaves them, but the sharpness of the pain does diminish to some extent over time. I cannot fathom the pain Mr. Stauch and Ms. Bullard have experienced as a result of the defendant's actions. A sentence in a criminal case such as this will not change the fact that their son's life was taken from them, and no sentence I impose and nothing I say will ever change that fact. Ms. Stauch, you betrayed the person you loved enough to marry. You told your husband lies and took away someone he loved. You took away every day that Mr. Stauch or Ms. Bullard could have had with their son. When you take a life, regardless of how you do that, you forever alter the future. Neither Mr. Stauch nor Ms. Bullard will ever see their son graduate from high school, go through the joy and the pain of that first love, or get married. They will never know what kind of impact their son may have had on the world if only he had lived to become an adult. And had Gannon's body not been found, they never would have known what happened to Gannon. They would always have had a lingering doubt about what happened to Gannon. And I cannot imagine the pain and sense of loss associated with that. You betrayed your daughter, Harley Hunt. I cannot imagine the emotional impact that you have had on her due to your selfish and calculated actions. This is a young woman that trusted you to put her interests above yours. This is a young woman who believed in you and believed you were innocent of this crime right up until the time that you pled not guilty by reason of insanity. And she still loves you. That's natural for a child, and it doesn't matter how much older they get. You were supposed to protect her. I cannot imagine the guilt she feels or the therapy that she will need to address your betrayal.
I'm going to skip some of this just a little bit. Let me see if I can skip forward just a little bit.
Keyboard. It's also not far from where you dumped Gannon's body. When questioned by Detective Bethel, you told her that Mr. Stauch might also make up some kind of story about you coming at him with a knife. You said you would never use a knife like that.
And I've always called her Letecia Stauch or Staunch, but it's Stock or Stauch, however you say it. But I don't think I've ever been able to pronounce her name correctly, so.
Yet Gannon was stabbed 18 times.
Boy.
Your actions in this case also show a very conscious attempt to avoid responsibility in this case. You started out with the story that Gannon had run away. You gave some hints that it might be related to bath salts or drug use by Gannon. You stayed with that story until you were called into EPSO for an interview. You knew they weren't going to buy the story that Gannon ran away. Then you came up with the abduction. And you stayed with some iteration of that for a long time. But all of those versions had one thing in common. You were always the victim. In one, you're beaten and raped and Gannon was abducted. In one, someone stole Gannon out of a truck in the parking lot. In another, you let someone drive Gannon to a hospital to take care of a head injury that he had after falling off a bike. In all of them, you could claim it wasn't your fault. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then you got arrested. You stuck to the story that it was someone else that took Gannon. During the hours that you spoke with Special Agent Grusing, he told you he thought sometimes good people do bad things and sometimes it's an accident. Then they found Gannon's body. Then you saw the mountain of evidence against you. And this is a mountain the size of Everest. What was your position after that? Well, it was an accident. And you, Letecia, didn't even do it. It was Maria Sanchez. You carefully crafted your new story to continue to avoid responsibility. It also allowed you to take advantage of the out that Mr. Grusing and Mr. Stauch suggested much, much earlier when they asked you if this was an accident. Now it was an accident. Your Maria Sanchez personality shot Gannon by mistake because she thought he was an intruder in a cape. Multiple personalities is not credible in this setting, as regardless of how many personalities you have, you only have one body.
Thank you for holding people accountable like they're just misusing the system with this mental illness. That's an excuse. That's an excuse.
I have presided over cases where a mental disease or defect prevented a defendant from remembering the course of events, including the commission of the crime. Without exception, those defendants have been terrified when contacted by law enforcement because there was a period of time in their lives that they could not account for. Their body may have sustained an injury, and they don't know how it happened. They may have some new object in their house or on their person, and they have no idea where they got it from. We all have free will, and we all make choices based on that free will. The people who suffer from the mental disorder you claim are terrified because their free will has been taken from them, and they are being subjected to things and experiences they don't understand and don't have any recollection of.
Did I not say that she knew exactly what she was doing and she wanted to end this boy's life? That's literally what I said, and I'm pretty sure that was the stance I had when I first talked about this in March of 2020, 3 years ago.
You didn't behave anything like that. One of the purposes is to impose an appropriate sentence for the criminal conduct that occurred. Another purpose is to punish an offender by imposing a sentence that takes into account the seriousness of the offense. Yet another purpose of sentencing is to prevent crime and promote respect for the law by providing an effective deterrent to others likely to commit a similar offense. Anyone who's been in my courtroom before knows that I've said sentencings are the most difficult thing that I do. That's especially true in cases where someone has lost his or her life. Nothing I or the law can do will ever bring that person back. I have handled hundreds, if not thousands, of criminal cases over the years. I think at this point in my career, I've presided over something like 200 jury trials. I've sentenced hundreds more defendants pursuant to plea agreements. This is not the first murder case that has come before me. This is not the first case I have presided over which involves harm to a child. This is not the first case I have had where a person who was in an unhappy marriage committed a crime.
If y'all would, please hit that thumbs up. Please, please, please share and hit that thumbs up while you guys are here.
Sadly, statistically, there is a high correlation between violent acts, including murders, and family members. I have had a number of cases which have demonstrated one person's capacity for cruelty toward another human being. I can, however, say without hesitation that the facts in this case are the most horrific I have ever seen. Your conduct in this case deserves the maximum punishment that I can impose under Colorado law. As such, with respect to the charge of first-degree murder after deliberation, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. With respect to the charge of murder in the first degree of a child under 12 by a person in a position of trust, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. Those two sentences will merge. If you have questions about that, you can ask your attorneys.
And what he just said right there was just like how Texas has super aggravated child abuse laws against children who are under the age of 10 years old. That special circumstance basically says that these children were less capable of being able to defend themselves against the tyranny of their caretaker, like I've been talking about for a long time, that we should impose a harsher sentence. That's what we've been asking for, and I love the fact that more states are doing this, but to hear him say that, I mean, think about how long, as the AFC podcast, how long we've been talking about that. So that's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
With respect to the charge of tampering with a deceased human body, I'm also going to sentence you to 12 years, followed by a 3-year period of parole. That sentence is to be consecutive to the life sentences that I've already imposed.
Consecutive. That means after her 2 life sentences. Y'all catch that? Consecutive. One after another. Concurrent means together. So that means if for some reason, if she's able to serve out 2 life sentences, she's still going to have that to deal with also. So, hey.
With respect to tampering with physical evidence, I'm going to impose an 18-month sentence. That sentence is also consecutive to the sentences for the murder charges that I have imposed. I also understand, with the consent of the prosecution, and I'm assuming no objection from the defense, that I will dismiss all the charges in 20 CR 3170, close that out, subject to restitution, give the people 49 days for restitution, 14 days for response, and if there's an issue, we will set it within the 90 days, from.
All these people putting all this stupid stuff about blood and all this bullcrap. If there's any blood in that house, it's because of Gannon. Gannon bleeds all the time.
This is her talking, just so y'all know. I hope y'all can hear that because I can't turn it up any louder. I'm going to let it play out. This is her voice. Listen at this.
All these people putting all this stupid stuff about blood and all this bullcrap. If there's any blood in that house, it's because of Gannon. Gannon bleeds all the time.
Okay.
There's no massacre occurred in our home.
That's Letecia Stauch telling one of many tall tales about the disappearance of her stepson Gannon. So how does famed criminal defense attorney Jose Baez come into the case?
Maybe it's part of her defense that she's insane, that she's imagining that she called our office. I have no idea.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and welcome to Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. We've been following the murder trial of Letecia Stauch out of Colorado for several weeks now, and we've been telling you about the many things that she has said that simply are not true. Stauch claims that she was insane when she killed Gannon Stauch in January 2020 and then drove his body to Florida from Colorado and dumped him stuffed in a suitcase over a bridge in Florida's Panhandle. Prosecutors say on January 27, 2020, Letecia attacked Gannon in his bedroom. They were living in El Paso County, Colorado. That's the Colorado Springs area. Crime scene investigators found evidence that 11-year-old Gannon had been killed in his room. That evidence included blood on his walls and his mattress. Deputies believed Stauch acted suspiciously about this disappearance from the very beginning, and their suspicions were well-founded. When asked about Gannon, Letecia lied and then lied some more and lied again. It became this absolute mountain of lies that she could never really get out of. The biggest lie, or series of lies, I should say, was about how Gannon went missing. Listen to prosecutor Michael J. Allen talk about that.
Now, some of this I'm going to skip because I don't want to just play out their whole podcast, especially when you guys can check their podcast out over there at Law and Crime. So with respect to them, and I hope they understand that I was only going to play some of it. So I'm going to try to skip through it just a little bit.
I miss you, Gannon, and I love you to the moon and back again. I know every day you're with me and your sisters, but that will never be taken away.
Gannon Stauch's mom, Landon Bullard, describing the loss of her son after the guilty verdict in the murder trial of Gannon's stepmother, Letecia Stauch. It's one of the 7 most powerful moments from Stauch's sentencing. I've covered a lot of crime stories at walls and floors, as well as in Letecia Stauch's vehicle.
Okay, so I'll skip that. That's part of their podcast also. So with respect to them, I'm going to skip that part. Let me show you these last 2 short videos. These will be kind of quick.
I thank Larson Ranch. I thank my church family. I thank Restoration. I thank everyone that is here today. Albert's family, my family, people that are watching at home. I also want to thank the judge, the jurors, and Michael Allen and your team for putting up with me and my emotional mess that I've been since from the beginning. But I've adopted a new family, and I'm very blessed to have you in Gannon's Army. You are a true inspiration, all of you. The days that I've had doubt and questions, you stood by us, and I'm very thankful. I can't give enough thanks. It's just one of those things that I just have to give God all the glory, because he has been a gracious God. When Gannon was born, we had one other time to fill the room. Gannon was born 1 pound, 6 ounces. Our church came and the whole hospital was filled. This other time is in the courtroom in this 3-year journey. And I'm so thankful for every search effort, for every manpower that was put in, every foot that walked across the snow. You never gave up. And earlier, divine intervention was mentioned, and I have full faith. 11:11 was in some messages, the body being found. It's one of the hardest things to accept, but it was also one of the biggest pieces to this puzzle. And I'm so thankful to serve a God that would open paths for us to keep moving forward. So I stand here today when I encouraged you last time just to do good deeds, to make sure you tell your loved ones you love them. If you have a hard spot in your heart, just pray that you can get it out, because you're never promised tomorrow. We wake up.
All right, you just heard from.
Okay, and this is part of the trial. Also, like I say, if you want to see more of this, you can go to lawandcrime.com. I mean, they've been really amazing when it comes to their articles and their support. And I think even as content creators, I think they even understand people like us that sometimes need to share some of their content and stuff like that. But we always give them credit, so I'm thankful for that. And hopefully we can, continue to share and hopefully try to make a difference. And I really hope this makes a difference to get people like this not only off the street, but people who create excuses behind doing something a level of heinous like this. And she probably thought that she was going to get away with, oh, I'm going to just give them a bunch of crazy stories and I did it because of this and this and that happened and so many things happened. And yeah, I'll get off on insanity. I'll get off lightly and maybe nobody will really know what happened. But the fact that they were so diligent to find out what really happened, put the story together, and then really more than anything, I think what stood out was the fact that they stood on and they said, nope, we're not letting you off lightly, and we're tired of people taking advantage of our babies. And that's a stand that I think in society and in America, that's where we got to stand the hell up. We got to take a stand. We have to have harsher sentences, and we have to make examples out of people just like Letecia Stauch or Staunch or Stench, whatever her freaking name is. Everybody, male or female, mother or father, boyfriend or girlfriend, need to be held accountable because this has got to stop. It's not slowing down. And maybe at some point, you just got to just really start smacking that proverbial hammer down on these people. Because the consequences have to make these people fear the choices that they're making when it comes to ending these children's lives. Leave the kids alone. You don't like it, get your punk ass away and get up out the house then. Why can't you be adult enough to do that? You don't like that boy that much? Leave the husband. Why don't you? Because you're selfish. We don't need people like that in our society. Young Gannon, young Prince. Let me see if I can get a solo picture of him by himself. A good picture, like these. R.I.P. Justice served. But that ain't going to bring this boy back. So let's try to continue to be advocates for children, and maybe we can prevent people like this from having access to kids, man. Do a background check. Maybe even do like a psychology test on people before you start having sex with them. And maybe we need to stop bringing people less and less around our kids. I definitely do not blame mothers, women, fathers. If you have biological kids in your house, if you are super, super cautious, continue to keep doing that. Don't just let anybody around your kids, man. Let me know what you guys think, though. Like, share, and subscribe. Please hit that thumbs up. We got more coming. Thank you.